All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome.
Len, you're muted.
How about now? Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Today, what we're going to do is I'm going to discuss the lesson plan assignment a little bit, focus on the reflection, answer any questions, and move forward relative to what we might have upcoming. So in the announcements, just to clarify, because I don't know if people have had time to read their feedback yet. Submissions were done a couple different ways, but all got to the point in that you had an original lesson plan. You then analyzed that lesson plan. You then modified that lesson plan, and you provided a rationale for your division, for your revisions. What we're trying to do here in that assignment is document the mental process. We can all put together a lesson plan, but when we do that, how are we intentionally looking to provide multiple opportunities? Or if we thought we wrote a great lesson plan and it didn't turn out that way, how are we then making adjustments for the future? Now, not knowing where all of you are relative to first year, second year, third year, I'm going to assume some of you have had some lesson plan writing course or as part of the writing course. How many of you have a template at your school? Okay, I see some hands up, both literally in the picture and in the documents. I'll tell you what we do here, then I'd like to have a little discussion, just see what's similar and different throughout the state. So what we for years, I've been here over a decade, and for our first few years, we did the turn the lesson plan in on Friday, and we had a 5-block lesson plan template, including the standard, including the program of study. So we were trying to demonstrate our academic integration, including the method of assessment, including any assignment, and a big idea and essential questions. So, but in our journey relative to curriculum writing, our learning activities are in our stage 3. So what we require of our teachers is to maintain what we call stage 3, our learning activities. And that's consistent with the understanding by design model. That's consistent if you look at curriculum on SAS. It's consistent with that format. So we don't necessarily collect it, but it is part of the teacher's observation and evaluation process here. And in the summer, one of the to-dos of our administration is we look at various submissions of curriculum. So we're looking at your stage 1, your big ideas and your essential questions. We're looking at stage 2, your evidence, which would be your assessments and what type of assessments you're using, and then your stage 3, which are your learning activities. And then
can't hear anything.
So I can hear you, Nicole. Was that Nicole? Okay. I assume other people aren't just staring and can hear me. So in any event, in the summer then on the to-do list, we'll sit down as an administrative team and I want to see exemplars, but I also want to see who might need some work and then how our administration tends to support that work. Derek, you have a raised hand. Go ahead, Derek. Do you have a question? Or just talking about lesson plans? All right. So relative to that, do we have somebody who's out of school and has to have a weekly submission of their lesson plan? Go ahead, John.
No, I was just raising my hand that I do. We submit lesson plans weekly. We also have a template. We also, in our template, we have a link to the task list. So we just copy and paste what we're doing, and the crosswalk as well is in there. So it makes it a little easier.
That sounds like a good planning document. I saw Schuylkill County. I saw Parkway West seems to have some templates. Anybody? But what I find is, I don't know about you, if any of you have gone through a program, CATS program approval process, and they want things like link to SOAR. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but Kenny, go ahead.
So, Len, this past year, I had the pleasure of being a first-year teacher, and it happened to be our CTE's year to get our 339, I think is what they call it.
Yes.
So the nice part is we use CTE 360 for a lot of things, and CTE 360, if you go in and figure out the lesson plan in there, it'll actually. It took me a while to understand the mathematics portion of it, because you have to link everything to STEM, mathematics, written assessment, and language and arts. They wanted something of everything for 339 and I'm going, hang on a minute here, I'm teaching electrical. What can I think electrical is going to deal with language and arts? So that was really hard for me as a first-year teacher, and I'm still having trouble with that. I wanted to show my lesson plan from there, but for some reason it wouldn't let me copy and paste to put it in for you. So I had to do everything longhand in your version of it.
So I've gone through 339, approved program evaluation. I've gone through Perkins, and I've gone through our comprehensive plan. And coming up on either my second or third, my third now, comprehensive plan will have to start this year. What I would like in the building is something that is going to have meaning and value. So if it's part of our curriculum design, I believe it has value. What I have found, though, relative, like when they so for example, the academic integrations, those can be somewhat difficult. I do not discourage you from using AI tools and putting in prompts to get you moving. I mean, for state reports and for state prompts, I'm not above doing that either. Now, I haven't found anything relative to AI where you just put it in and it comes out exactly like you want. I think you still have to make it yours and customize it. But Ken, have you looked at any artificial intelligence tools?
Yeah, so I ended up going to AI, typing my zip code in, and then I tried to type in, like a prompt I put in there is what would fall under the language and arts portion of my zip code. And weirdly enough, it said about reading the National Electric Code as part of my language and arts zip code. So,
And again, don't forget, tying in the differentiation to that piece, we've discussed how those technical manuals are at a high lexile, and a follow-up to that may be, and again, I think you could use AI as a starting point, is how might you differentiate that manual relative to your learners? What can you do about varying lexiles? Because it's not easy reading, and it's not pleasure reading.
well, I can tell you, I've been dealing with the National Electric Code for the last 20 years, and I still get confused sometimes reading it. So yeah, I totally agree. It's very hard for somebody that needs differentiating learning to read the National Electric Code.
Well, and it could be the nomenclature, and it could be the vocabulary. I mean, I'm not familiar with the electric vocabulary at all, right? So
Yeah.
if I would try to be an introductory student in your class, again, I'd have to have a lot of word study just to understand what you're talking about. How are you going to have a conversation about a topic when you have no vocabulary to that specific topic? I mean, literally, it's almost like a foreign language.
Yeah, so what I started to do this year is all my vocabulary words for my program come out of the front of the National Electric Code, and I just have them do 3 words a day, and then at the end of each week, we do the top 20 words that we did, and we take a short quiz on the top 20 words that we just studied over the past weeks, or over the past couple weeks.
And I would tie that back into what we said previously about word walls and how you can have vocabulary study that goes beyond, well, I see it, I can spell it, I can define it, but I need to be able to use it and use it in context. So I'd encourage, again, what might be interesting is what would, in Gemini AI or ChatGPT, Freyer models. Yes, John. What might be good is in Gemini AI, ChatGPT, whatever you like, what would some different word wall strategies be for electrical, right? And how can I incorporate them into my lessons so student can understand and just see, what type of ideas they might lead you to. John, go ahead.
Yeah, so I use a Freyer model as a do now sometimes in Lumio. Put it in Lumio, and you have the word, and then it has 4 boxes around there, and the definition in their terms, the formal definition, how it connects to carpentry, and then they can search the web and copy and paste an image in there. I feel like that's a pretty good way to nail home a definition.
So the Freyer model has been an effective differentiation strategy and an effective content literacy strategy for a long time. Again, while John was talking, I just put in Freyer model, right? Look at the AI overview of what comes up, what's the definition, what are the characteristics, what are the examples. And something I like about the Freyer model is, well, what isn't it, right? So examples as well as non-examples. So that's definitely a jumping off point there where you can build the vocabulary of your students. You're all in unique vocabulary. And some of your students might have some background and interest, and some might be coming in cold. So getting them to understand the nomenclature and understand the vocabulary for deep learning, because we expect them to apply it. Let's go back to our elementary school experience. And I don't know about you, but again, I probably was in school when dinosaurs roamed the earth. But in any event, we would have Friday spelling tests, right? You get the words on Monday, you get 20 words, you're going to have to spell them on Friday. Okay. But I can't remember, and, obviously it's been a minute, 4 decades at least. Oh my, I've been teaching 3 decades, so it's been more than that. So in any event, I think I told this group before, I started kindergarten in the 75-76 school year. So some of you might remember the same presidents and some of you may not. But on those weekly spelling tests, we weren't asked to necessarily define them or use them. And then, as a social studies teacher and as a social studies student, a lot of my social studies teachers would give us vocabulary and we would do definitions. And there's a degree of understanding there. But again, I'm going to go back to Webb's depth of knowledge. That's all domain 1. That's all recall. And so once that unit was over, and you're not scaffolding on top of prior knowledge, you're only going to retain about 20%. So think about this. If you're stuck in a lot of recall and retention and just memorization, and for example, the straight up lecture, if I was just giving you notes, long term, you're going to remember 20% of that. So a student who gets 100 would get a 20, right? But if you have a student who is getting got an 80% and they would only remember 20%, they're only remembering 16% of what you taught. If you take a student who got a 60%, they're only remembering 12% of what you taught. So not very effective to stay in that domain 1 of recall. I really find that in looking at your lesson plans, many of you are doing some great connections and taking your expertise in your content area and then coming up with accommodations and differentiation and allowing your students to succeed because you know your content area so well and you're learning your learners. I also have was reading some samples of starting statements like this. Now in my 3rd year, I am able to. And I saw some statements start off with, I remember how frustrated I was as a student, so now that I'm a teacher. So we're starting with what frustrated us perhaps, and we don't want to frustrate our kids. And then as we gain more experience, we're getting able to predict, well, I know this concept is hard and my students are going to struggle, so I am preparing A, B, and C. But one thing I didn't see, and I'm glad I didn't see it, was this is difficult. I provide the differentiation, but in the end, they still struggle. Well, you can't let it go with that. You can't let it go with that. Any others on their lesson plan submissions that they have to do to their administration? Anybody else as a young teacher have to go through an approved program evaluation, a 339 process? All right. Wait for that. Wait for that. I'm going to see if I can find something quickly. So this is just an example of a snippet relative to vet assistant, and these would be our blocks that we require and that we think are useful. We have our academic integration. We have how it relates to the program of study. I think that it's important for teachers to identify how do you know that they got it, and any work that's required of them. All right. Anybody have any questions if they had a chance to see the feedback that I left regarding their lesson plan? All right. I want to move to go ahead, Ken.
When I was reading my feedback, and I guess maybe for me it was just hard to understand what you were trying to portray to me there on my feedback on my lesson plan.
All right, I will. I'll look at that because I don't have it memorized. I'll look at that and I'll get back to you with an extended comment.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, last week I put the cart before the horse a little bit, getting into our next assignment. So what you're going to be doing don't want to do that. Apologize, I have too many windows open. All right. So next in our journey, so you've described how you adapt your curriculum, but your next topic is adapting curriculum, a conversation with your supervisor. Has anybody had a problem scheduling that? Okay. So everyone should be able to complete that assignment in a timely fashion. Relative to your professional development, have there been any initiatives relative to teaching, learning, and differentiation in some of your in-service activities? Go ahead, Kyle.
So we have it built in at our school. It's nice. We have 2 hours every Friday. It's an early dismissal for students, and we get a professional development time every Friday. So, like this year, their focus in professional development is AI. So, I would say every third, fourth week so far, we've had outside people come in and train us on AI. And the whole point is to try to better acclimate the teacher to AI so we can use it in the classroom more effectively, opening up more pathways to differentiation using the technology available to us.
You know, I don't think we should be afraid of AI. I think it's like anything else, it's here. If you go back, things like a pencil, that was new. Calculator, new, right? As technology has it, the internet, new. As technology has advanced, we need to learn how to use it because it's not going away. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually we have like a new teachers development like group that we meet every 2 weeks. And the last time we met it was Thursday or Friday last week. I think I'm having problems pacing what I'm trying to schedule for lessons. I was grouping it all together, thinking, oh, we can learn this in 1 week or 2 weeks, where that lesson should probably be 3 weeks long. So it's nice meeting together and being able to come up with new ideas to pace out your lesson over a multiple week or multiple area of items to go over. And you'll probably see that once I post the my lesson to you.
Sure. Scope, sequence, pacing, that all will come with experience. I think too, sometimes there might be a little bit of a misconception. We're taking 3 years to get a student prepared to be an entry level employee. Right? They're not a journeyman, they're not an apprentice. They should be able to walk in to a business in their trade and industry and be able to do entry level work. There was another hand up. Go ahead, Kyle.
I just had one thing for Joe really helped me coming into my second year is every day for pacing wise, every day my first year, I kept a big journal and a notebook and I would write, November 15th, because I think that's when I started, and go and literally just write down everything I did that day. And at the end, went too fast through this thing, or, could spend more time here. 30 minutes left in class to work on machines or something like that. And it really helped me coming into my first full year. In the first month here, I've been able to like kind of pace things out a little better where they didn't understand. So like keeping a journal like that really helped me.
I agree. I did the same thing, Kyle. I did the same thing last year. I make a weekly schedule, Monday through Friday. I put the days my students are at Penn State on Mondays and Fridays, and then the other days they're with me. I write down everything we did that day. Did we go over a PowerPoint? Did we do worksheets in our learning guide? Did we, what topics for midterm did we cover? Did we review for an upcoming midterm test? That way I can look back if I'm not sure of like where we were at this point last year, or like just to kind of keep myself in check from year to year to make sure that I'm not going too fast, or if I need to speed things up a little bit, maybe they're getting stagnant. So, but yeah, no, that's great, Kyle. I do the same thing.
Also, Joe, use the OSHA. If you do the OSHA 10-hour in your first like month here, get them signed up for the OSHA, and it'll give you like an hour a week or an hour and a half a week while they're working on OSHA on computers or something, for you to do a little bit more prep work, just kind of to help you get through the first few months and get into a groove.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that I started doing that last week, starting to write down everything, because like I would start a course and I'd be like, okay, we're doing flaring today for my 200s, and not knowing that my 200s didn't even know what that was yet. So trying to figure that out is where I'm at. So thank you.
Ken, go ahead.
Joe, I can also tell you, sometimes you might have to revisit it, because last week I just spent 4 days on one chapter, and I wanted to drive home one portion of that chapter today as part of my principal evaluation. and they all looked at me staring at the ceiling like I never even spoke of the subject that I spent 4 days on working with. So one thing that I found out today, which we'll be doing again tomorrow, is I pulled out a worksheet from the previous teacher. I was lucky enough to have worksheets from previous teachers in my classroom, and we sat there and chunked it up into individual questions. Okay, we're going to do question 1. Everybody's doing question 1 with me. And it got to the point where I felt like I was short in my morning crew, because I really didn't drive it home to the morning crew, but I will drive it home tomorrow to the morning crew. The afternoon crew got it a lot faster than the morning crew. And that was first year through third year students. So it really, some days like that makes me doubt myself on whether I drove something home when I have a third year student that can't even figure out the topic that I'm working on, and I teach the same thing every year.
That's a great explanation, Ken. So moving forward to preview the assignment and to preview the interview, so I did prepare, I'm going to call these sample questions. I don't know if you'll get through all of them with your administration, but let's take a look at the conversation. So, question number 1. As an educator, what does differentiate instruction mean to you? Obviously not you as the teacher, but as your supervisor, what does it mean to them? Because I believe the administration and the faculty need to be more similar than different relative to differentiate instruction. And I don't care if you turn the document in and you just type the question and type out the answer. I mean, that's fine. As an administrator, what are your expectations for teaching insofar as differentiate instruction to meet the needs of every student? Obviously, when we've bridged this subject, we talk some about regular ed, we talk some about 504, and then we run the gamut with special education. But I'd like to differentiate a little bit in the interview, because there is a question relative to IEP students. How do you support administrative expectations with corresponding professional development? Kyle just brought up a great example that the administration is providing PD with AI because there's an expectation about being more comfortable in using it. How do we balance the demands of the program of study with learners coming to us with various ability levels and preparedness? And I'm sure you find that a challenge. You have your high flyers set, ready to go, know what they want, come with some background knowledge. They make teaching easy. They make us feel like we're a good teacher. And then you have some that are on the struggle bus and make us feel like Ken just said, I've had them for how many years, then they still didn't get it. This should be based upon previous discussions with this group, this should be an interesting one. What are the administrative expectations in regards to meeting the specially designed instruction of an IEP, and how do you orient new teachers to the world of special education? And we've gotten into this a little bit previously, and I'd like to revisit because I think it's important to make some clarification. On the one hand, you are bound by the IEP and the SDI. But on the other hand, you are an expert in your area and can make recommendations at that IEP meeting. You're not going to that IEP meeting just to rubber stamp whatever is said. I've heard some of you talk about concerns relative to getting below a particular percentage. They get to redo whatever, get below a 60, open book test, whatever the case might be. If you don't feel those are appropriate expectations, I think it's healthy to engage in a conversation as to why. And I believe you're saying so for the best of intentions. If you want those students, because you know what it takes to be successful in your industry. I do not know what it takes to be successful in your industry. So go ahead, Ken.
In relative to that statement you just made about the IEP meetings and then our input to those IEP meetings, my school does not permit the teacher to be at the IEP meeting. Only the school counselors, the specialized IEP people, and then the people from the homeschool are there. I've never been invited to an IEP meeting.
Am I still sitting in my chair?
Yes, sir. And when I question it, I get told IEPs are a legal bounding document, and if it's written there, I have to follow it regardless.
That is true. However, let's say that you had no say-so in the document. Are they asking for your signature?
No, I don't have any signature on the IEP.
Okay. I would still do the following. One, you need to be part of the IEP meeting. We, as administration, in our approved program evaluation, are asked, how do the teachers participate in the IEP? Now, I'm assuming your school says it's the counselor or whomever. Okay?
Yes.
If you have concerns about the SDI or the goals or the objectives, you have a duty to become more knowledgeable about something you weren't at. Well, if I need to become more knowledgeable and I wasn't there, I need to go to who was there and start the conversation with the following. I know the IEP is a legal binding document. That's why I'm here. Here are my concerns.
Okay.
And I would document that. For example, let's say you meet with the case manager, okay? And you have this conversation. Thank you. I now know a lot more about this child. Appreciate it. After that meeting, I would go from my school email and I would email that case manager something to the following. Thank you for meeting with me today after school on September 22nd. I found the meeting very informative. I appreciate you bringing the IEP a lot. Now, you don't have to use all these words, obviously.
Yeah.
Because you've looked at the IEP, right? And you've looked at the SDI.
Yes.
Okay. Based upon the current SDI and what I have observed relative to student performance, here are my concerns. So now you have laid out a concern. Is it possible to have a discussion, further discussion? You don't have to amend the IEP, but you can reconvene an IEP team and have that discussion. Because look, here's another thing I believe. If these students are staying in your programs for multiple years, they obviously have some interest. And they obviously, I would think that's going to be, because here's another part of the plan, Ken, is transition. And there's a whole transition grid relative to the IEP. Much more important for the case manager, much more important for the LEA than you. But, you know, for someone like me, I need to know that that's done, right? So, and also you do the career objective form, correct? Right. So I want you to think of a student right now who you've completed the career objective form for this year, but you believe the SDI is not going to allow them to complete their career objective. I believe that's what you're getting at, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, just an example, and I won't share a name, but I had a young man last year. He was nowhere relative ready to graduate, but ended up graduating because of the process in the IEP or whatever. And then his career objective was to go on to be a lineman in a lineman school. And I'm just thinking to myself, there's no way he's going to make the first week in lineman school.
If he gets accepted.
Well, he did get accepted, and that really shocked me because they do give a test to take the lineman school.
I was gonna say, that's all I know about that is that's pretty competitive even to get in.
Yeah.
And again, I don't say these things because I'm anti-special ed. I am not. It's easier to lower the bar. I've used this phrase before, agitate their comfort zone. We should be pushing them to get the most out of them. Let them show us where they stop or where they have an obstacle or whatever. But we should not be setting goals that they have to bend down to reach, right? They should be up here, just always trying to climb, always trying to reach, always trying to get higher. So,
my example, Len, I don't know if this will help you or not. My example was one of my students in their IEP. It was discussed that I potentially I push my students too hard. So in order for me to sign off on a program of study, my students have to show me at least 2 projects that they scored a 90 or higher. I won't sign off on a program of study until I see that. My principal says, well, that's an awful high score to reach. I says, well, let me refer to you this way. Do you want me to send you an electrician that'll have a 20% chance of burning your house down, or an electrician that'll have a 10% chance of burning your house down?
Well, funny, I'm going to draw a relation to that, is there's inconsistencies relative to the NOCTI. And what I mean by that is some people can get a proficient on or competent on the NOCTI and only score 40%, but other NOCTIs are set at 80%. So when you say pass the NOCTI, it's not the same for every test. So I don't know what your building expectations are program to program to sign off, but again, especially when we're talking about electricity, someone can get hurt.
Yep.
They could hurt others, or God forbid, the worst. So I don't think you're mischievous, or I don't think you're being objectionable, or I don't think you're being obstinate by asking questions. And if it's the right thing to do, they should be able to answer those questions.
Correct.
So I think we're all about finding pathways for kids. And I think, some kids are going to get there quicker than others, and not all kids are going to get to the same point. But the goal is to get them all through that program of study. So if you can't get them through that program of study, I would consider that an issue. And also relative to, I don't know where the role of contacting parents comes in. I think we need to have a relationship with parents, be it either email or Parent Square or phone calls or some type of communication. Because again, you're the expert. That special ed teacher, that case manager, and that LEA, they're an expert in their area. They're an expert in interpreting the evaluation report. They're an expert in writing the IEP. You're the expert in how Joe Schmo is going to be a successful lineman. And those things need to come together. And if they're not coming together, if there's a discrepancy, how do we expect to rectify that? Can anyone speak to being part of the IEP process? Go ahead, John.
I was in a meeting today, actually, an IEP meeting today, and got one next week. Yeah, they invite the teachers at my school.
Any others about participating? Go ahead, Frecia.
So at our school, typically, like I said, we usually go into it
as a group. And each teacher is encouraged to go over what their expectations are and whether or not the accommodations that were put in place are still recommended moving into the next year.
So like last year, I had a student who had all of these crazy
add-ons to her IEP, which must have come from when she was younger, because sitting in my class, none of them were necessary. She was phenomenal. So at my
Can I
portion
tell
of
you
the
the irony
meeting-
in there, Frecia, not to interrupt because I don't want you to lose your thought? Those IEPs are not supposed to be copy pasted year after year. And I bet she's had the same accommodations and modifications year after year, and it just gets left in. Go ahead. Sorry. That's a pet peeve.
Yeah. So the way that they had it worded, it was up to her as to whether or not she used these accommodations. So every time, sorry, my dog's here. So every time we would have these like exams or whatever where these accommodations, sorry.
No, please. I'm a dog owner. Go ahead.
Every time these accommodations would fall in line and she had the opportunity to use them, she would nix it and just decide to move on. So at the meeting, I had suggested, because she's about to graduate and go into the real world, that, you know, we don't have an IEP for work, that they should consider dropping it for her senior year and just seeing whether or not she could fly on her own. And I actually have seen her in the last week and said that her senior year is going well, and she's actually working as one of our lab assistants this year, which I thought was incredible. So I like that they give us the opportunity to not just participate, but give recommendation on our IEP meetings.
Since that's a great example, and I don't memorize every school, where are you from?
York County.
Great. It
Yep.
sounds to me like it's a great and effective process.
Yeah, I think it works really well.
Allie?
I was a part of my a student's. She's my first student at my first experience with an IEP, and hers was a little. She had some accommodations, but nothing that is too too hard to manage in CTE. The only issue is the uncharted territory of, so my program is a dual enrollment, so my students take college courses in addition to mine. So there was a little bit of uncertainty of how this would apply, you know, obviously to her college classes. But I mean, unfortunately, the aspect that the dual enrollment aspect was kind of out of our hands. It was more or less going to be up to the parent and the student to reach out to the college to their guidance and see if there's any accommodations that could be, you know, given to her for that. But I mean, it was nice that they included me on it, because, well, it was during the off season when before school started, but I said I wanted to be a part of it because I wanted to see the process and, you know, just basically learn about it myself. And, you know, there were some areas in her SDI that we were able to modify for my course, because whereas she could use a word bank for most tests, but for mine, she had to know the terms and spell them, like, and she would have not, there was an SDI that said, you know, can't lose points for spelling. But for one of my medical terminology courses, like, spelling is you need it. So they added in there, you know, spelling will not be held against her unless it is for the purpose of medical terminology, then spelling counts. So, like, you know, they were able to modify her SDI with me right there, because I was able to have input on, you know, my course and the expectations in my course. And she took her first exam with the college course today, and she took it with the rest of the class, like in the whole, like she could have gone to this Students with Disabilities Center to take her test, but she chose, and she can do that. She can choose to, make the decision whether she wants to do it or not, that, follow that. She chose that she wanted to sit in the auditorium and take the test with everyone else. So I'm really excited to see, I'm really excited to see her score and see how well she did, because she does advocate for herself, and she's a great kid. So I'm happy that this is my first experience with an IEP. But it is nice that they included me in on it. And I do have a gifted IEP coming up on Thursday, which was a surprise to all of us, because the district just told us, oh yeah, this person has a gifted IEP. So I was like, oh great, So I have that meeting on Thursday.
Couple things. Sounds like a great process. What school?
Schuylkill Technology Center in
School.
Fractal.
Okay. With gifted and differentiation, not more work, different work. I find in the elementary school, the regular kids have 10 problems. Give the gifted kids 20. No, don't punish them for being gifted. Not more work, different work. Nicole.
Yeah, I'm off it. So, I'm with Freesia. I go to the same school, Freesia, and we do have meetings, but most of the time with that, it's more with the student that I have, it's the parent that don't want to let them progress further.
Yes.
And that's the problem that I have with the student of mine, that I know that she can, but the parent is always holding her back. Like, are you sure that she can do this? Is it possible that we can do something else instead of allowing her to, expand and do what she needs to do? And that's my problem with that. When we have a meetings, it's always the one student that I have is her parent.
Yes, and so ultimately, the accountability does go back home. And the ultimate power in the IEP is definitely with the student and the family. I believe we have an obligation to present what we feel is in their best interest. And if we can reach consensus, great. But if a parent plants their flag and absolutely wants what they want when they want it, I know as an administrator, I'm not going to due process if I don't feel I have a leg to stand on. And typically in due process, you're wrong until you're told you're more wrong. So I've only had to do that a couple times. Typically in some type of arbitration, you can work something out. But Nicole, your point is extremely valid, that I'm not saying that parents doing that because they don't love their child. I'm saying they do because they do love their child. But unfortunately, sometimes for the best of intentions, we can do the worst of things. And holding that child back, take the training wheels off. What's going to happen? I don't know if kids ride bikes anymore, but I still remember, because it must have been a traumatic experience, when my father took the training wheels off and he's walking beside my bike, and then he let go, and guess what happened? I wrecked. Skinned my knee, right? But he gave me the opportunity to try. He gave the opportunity to fail. And, before not too long, I could ride my bike with no training wheels. So
it's humbling. Sorry for cutting you off. It's humbling because my granddaughter now, I was just reading the email from her LIU, and it was saying that she's a gifted IEP. So it's humbling because it's things that I was like, oh, I don't want her doing this and I don't want her doing that, because I have custody of her now. So it's now things that I'm allowing them to let her do in school that I was like, nope. At the beginning, I was like, no. And then when I was in a meeting with that parent, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm that parent. And it was just really crazy. So it's very humbling now that, just seeing how I was holding her back, and now I see that she's expanding more, that I'm letting her and allowing the school to do more stuff with her. Then I was like, no, I don't think she's ready for that. And that's how I was. So now I see a big difference in her by me just allowing them to, do what they have for her versus what I know. And it's more coddling than anything else. So yeah, that was my problem with that one. So now I'm understanding a lot more now that I'm getting my granddaughter has been diagnosed with an IEP and then possibly autism. So we're getting all of that squared
Got your hands full.
away.
With about 4 minutes to go, I want to touch on really what I think might be the most interesting part of the conversation. Ask your supervisor, your principal, what do you feel my strengths are as an instructor in regards to differentiated instruction, and where do I need to grow? We all need to get better. We all need to get better. How do they know you as an instructor? And what constructive professional advice can they give you as their supervisor? One of the things I like to do in my position is walk the building, and sometimes walk the building with the principal or the assistant principal. Things become very, very obvious. I don't have to write a lot of things down. I'm not the primary supervisor. I'm not doing their evaluation. But I can tell you class by class, we're not that big. We're only 35 teachers. About 13 shops, 17 on the other side, some paraprofessionals. We're about 35 teachers. I can tell you what I feel from my observation are the strengths and weaknesses of the teachers we have here. First, I would say I start with administration. When I get a new administrator, I said, here's your litmus test when you observe and you evaluate a teacher. Would you put your child in that teacher's class? If the answer is yes, great. If it's no, we're going to help that person, but we're going to get them better, or they got to find their life's work. Teaching isn't easy. I'm sure you're seeing that. So you have to have something beyond content knowledge in order to be an effective teacher. So I'm very curious, soup to nuts, how your conversation will end with that concluding question. Kyle, who's our honored guest here?
That's my 3-year-old daughter, Joy May.
Joy May, you are bringing joy to our lives this afternoon. I love that hair.
Yeah, she's got the fancy curlies.
Oh, Shirley Temple-esque.
Yep,
You have to show her a picture of Shirley Temple.
I will.
With about 2 minutes to go, any question, comment, or concern about the interview coming up? Ken, I'll go back and I'll look at that feedback and try to give you some extended feedback. If there's nothing else, I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance today. Michael, wonderful. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Again, I like the collaboration from around the state. Keep something in mind. Look at what we're doing here and how can you replicate it in your classroom. We're learning from one another, right? We're engaging one another. We're using our own experiences and we're growing together. So I'm having a good time and I hope you are too. Nicole, is this our little girl you were just talking about?
Yes, this is say hi, Azeri.
Hi.
Azeri, I love those braids.
Say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, honey. You got a good grandma, huh?
Yes.
Okay, everybody, I'll stay on for anybody who needs. Other than that, thank you and have a great week.
Thank you.
you.
Have a great one.